The dating of Zoroaster's life remains a topic of significant debate among scholars, with no clear consensus. The Avesta, the primary religious text of Zoroastrianism, provides no direct information about his time frame, and historical sources offer conflicting accounts. Some scholars attempt to date Zoroaster by analyzing the Proto-Indo-Iranian language and religion, while others rely on internal evidence within the texts. Although many scholars today suggest that Zoroaster likely lived around 1000 BC, others propose a broader range of possible dates, spanning from 1500 to 500 BC. Classical scholars from the 6th to 4th centuries BC, such as Xanthus, Eudoxus, Aristotle, and Hermippus, believed Zoroaster lived 6,000 years before Xerxes I's invasion of Greece in 480 BC. This may have stemmed from a misunderstanding of the Zoroastrian concept of 4 cycles, each lasting 3,000 years, totaling 12,000 years. Diogenes Laertius recorded this belief, but variant interpretations place Zoroaster's life 600 years before Xerxes I, suggesting a date before 1000 BC. Additionally, the 10th century Suda mentions a date of 500 years before the Trojan War, while Pliny the Elder, citing Eudoxus, places Zoroaster's death around 6300 BC, 6,000 years before Plato. Various pseudo-historical accounts further complicate the matter. Aristoxenus claimed that Zarathustra the Chaldean, possibly Zoroaster, taught Pythagoras in Babylon or lived during the time of the mythological figures Ninus and Semiramis. Pliny the Elder even suggested that there were 2 Zoroasters, one who lived thousands of years ago and another who accompanied Xerxes I during his invasion of Greece. The exact birthplace of Zoroaster also remains a mystery, further complicated by the lack of consistent linguistic and regional evidence in the ancient texts. The 2005 Encyclopedia Iranica article on the history of Zoroastrianism succinctly summarizes the current scholarly stance. While there is general agreement that he did not live in western Iran, attempts to locate him in specific regions of eastern Iran, including Central Asia, remain tentative. This reflects the ongoing uncertainty and debate surrounding the precise origins of one of history's most enigmatic figures. Zoroaster, whose full name is recorded as Zarathustra Spitama, was born into the Spitama family, the son of Purashaspa and Dugdao. His lineage reflects a nomadic tradition, with his father's name meaning possessing gray horses, where Aspa translates to horse, and his mother's name meaning milkmaid. Tradition holds that Zoroaster had 4 brothers, 2 older and 2 younger, though their names are found in much later Pahlavi texts. Zoroaster's training for the priesthood likely began early, around the age of 7. By the age of 15, he had become a priest, and he continued to gain knowledge through instruction from various teachers and personal experiences from his travels after leaving his parents at age 20. At the age of 30, Zoroaster had a profound spiritual revelation during a spring festival. While on the bank of a river, he encountered a shining figure who identified himself as Vohumana, good purpose. Vohumana introduced Zoroaster to Ahura Mazda, wise lord, and 5 other radiant figures, marking the beginning of Zoroaster's awareness of 2 primal spirits, Ahura Mazda, representing order and truth, Asha, and Ingram Manu, destructive spirit, representing chaos and deception, Druj. Motivated by this revelation, Zoroaster devoted his life to teaching the path of Asha, encouraging people to choose order and truth over deception and chaos. He received further divine insights, including a vision of the 7 Ansha Spenta, the holy immortals, that embody aspects of Ahura Mazda's creation. His teachings, encapsulated in the Gathas and later in the Avesta, formed the core of Zoroastrianism. Zoroaster's mission gained significant momentum when, at about the age of 42, he secured the patronage of Queen Hudiosa, and a local ruler named Vishtaspa, who became one of the first adherents of Zoroastrianism. According to the Shahnameh, an epic poem, Vishtaspa may have been a ruler in Bactria. With Vishtaspa's support, Zoroaster was able to establish a community of followers and further spread his teachings. Throughout his life, Zoroaster married 3 times. His first 2 wives bore him 3 sons, Isadvastra, Urvatatnara, and Verchidra, and 3 daughters, Freni, Thridi, and Purichista. His 3rd wife, Vovi, did not have any children. Zoroaster continued his religious and community leadership until his death at the age of 77 years and 40 days. The circumstances surrounding Zoroaster's death are shrouded in conflicting traditions. The most widely accepted account suggests that he was murdered by a Karapan, a priest of the pre-Zoroastrian religion, named Brodres while performing a ritual at the altar. However, other sources, such as the Denkart and the Shahnameh, claim that Zoroaster was killed by a Turanian soldier named Zarathustra, who may be a variant of the same figure. Some traditions merge both accounts, while others suggest that Zoroaster died peacefully of old age. The Cypress of Kashmar, a mythical tree of immense beauty and extraordinary size, is deeply rooted in the legends of Zoroastrianism. According to tradition, the tree sprang from a branch that Zoroaster himself brought from paradise. It was planted in Kashmar, located in northeastern Iran, as a symbol of King Vishtaspa's conversion to Zoroastrianism. King Vishtaspa, a significant patron of Zoroaster, is said to have had the tree planted by Zoroaster in honor of his newfound faith. The tree's legendary status is further documented by the Iranian physicist and historian Zakaria al-Qazwini in his work, The Wonders of Creatures and the Marvels of Creation. Al-Qazwini recounts how in 861 AD, the Abbasid Caliph al-Mutawakkil ordered the mighty cypress to be felled and transported across Iran to be used as beams in his new palace in Samarra. Despite fervent protests from the local population, who valued the tree not only for its beauty but for its religious significance, and even offered a vast sum of money to spare it, the caliph insisted on his demand. The cypress was cut down, but al-Mutawakkil never saw the tree, as he was murdered by a Turkic soldier, likely under the orders of his son, on the very night that the cypress arrived on the banks of the Tigris River. The reverence for the Cypress of Kashmar is emblematic of the broader respect Zoroastrians have for nature, a respect that has often been misunderstood and criticized. Athanasius Kircher, a 17th-century scholar, made the curious identification of Zoroaster with Ham, the son of Noah from the Bible. This identification was part of a broader trend among European thinkers who sought to connect various religious and mythological figures from different cultures to those of the Bible. Another notable example is the French Jesuit missionary Joachim Bouvet, who proposed that Zoroaster, the Chinese cultural hero Fuxi, and Hermes Trismegistus were all manifestations of the biblical patriarch Enoch. The Encyclopedia Iranica notes that the stories about Zoroaster's life and teachings were often distorted through the appropriation and adaptation of narratives from Christianity and Judaism. This process became particularly pronounced after the Islamic conquest of Persia, as Zoroastrian clergy sought to preserve and strengthen their religious tradition by aligning it with the dominant Islamic beliefs. This adaptation was likely a strategy by Zoroastrian clergy to prevent the complete extinction of their religion in the face of Islamic dominance. For instance, similarities can be seen in the concept of the Amshah Spenta and the Islamic Archangel Gabriel, the practice of praying 5 times a day, the covering of one's head during prayer, and references in the Quran to the Mud and Iram of the pillars, figures that resonate with Zoroastrian lore. Like the Greeks of classical antiquity, Islamic tradition acknowledges Zoroaster as the founding prophet of the Magians, a term that comes to Arabic through Aramaic as Magus, with the collective Majusia. The 9th and 10th century Sunni historian al-Tabari, drawing from the earlier 8th century al-Kalbi, presents a narrative in which Zarathustra, referred to as Zarathustra bin Isfahan in Arabic, is depicted as an inhabitant of Israel, who served as a disciple of the prophet Jeremiah. According to this account, Zarathustra betrayed his master, prompting Jeremiah to curse him, which resulted in Zarathustra contracting leprosy, a motif that echoes the story of Gehazi, the servant of Elisha in Jewish scripture. This curse and subsequent exile led Zarathustra to migrate to the region of modern-day Azerbaijan, which was then governed by a ruler named Bashtasib, a reference to Vishtaspa, who was said to be a governor under Nebuchadnezzar. It is in this region that Zarathustra is believed to have spread the teachings of Zoroastrianism, ultimately convincing Bashtasib to adopt the new religion and impose it on his subjects, with severe consequences for those who refused to convert. Al-Tabari's historical accounts also include a version where Zarathustra accompanies a Jewish prophet to the court of Bishtasp, or Vishtaspa. Upon arrival, Zarathustra translates the prophet's Hebrew teachings for the king, persuading him to convert to the Magian religion. The 12th century heresiographer Al-Shahrastani provides further insight into the Islamic classification of Zoroastrian sections. He divides the Magians into three groups: the Kayyamarthia, the Zurwania, and the Zarathustra. Al-Shahrastani notes that the Kayyamarthia sect, which is otherwise undocumented, seemed to have a unique doctrine regarding the non-reality of Ahriman, the evil spirit in Zoroastrian dualism. The Zurwania sect, which is better known, followed the Zurvanite interpretation of Zoroastrianism, emphasizing the concept of Zurvan, time, as a primordial deity. However, Al-Shahrastani asserts that only the Zarathustra, the followers of Zoroaster, can be considered true adherents of Zoroastrianism. Regarding the recognition of a prophet, Zoroaster is said to have provided criteria for discerning the truthfulness of a prophet. In the Nama Shat Vakshur Zartust, a Zoroastrian text, it is stated, "They ask you as to how they should recognize a prophet and believe him to be true in what he says. Tell them what he knows that others do not, and he shall tell you even what lies hidden in your nature. He shall be able to tell you whatever you ask him, and he shall perform such things which others cannot perform." The Ahmadiyya community recognizes Zoroaster as a prophet, interpreting his teachings about Ahura Mazda and Ahriman not as an assertion of cosmic dualism, but rather as symbolic of the moral choices available to humanity. According to this view, the existence of both good, Ahura Mazda, and evil, Ahriman, enables humans to exercise free will, a central concept in Ahmadiyya theology. Manichaeism, a syncretic religion founded by Mani in the 3rd century, also acknowledges Zoroaster as a significant figure within a lineage of prophets, with Mani himself considered the final prophet in this line. Zoroaster also holds an important place in the Bahá'í faith, where he is recognized as a manifestation of God, a prophet through whom God has revealed divine guidance to humanity. In Bahá'í teachings, Zoroaster is part of a series of prophets that includes figures such as Abraham, Moses, Krishna, Jesus, Muhammad, the Bab, and Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Bahá'í faith. Each of these prophets is seen as part of a progressive revelation, through which God has gradually unveiled his will to a maturing human race. Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the Bahá'í faith in the early 20th century, linked Baha'u'llah's mission with a post-Sassanid Zoroastrian prophecy foretelling the return of a savior figure akin to the Sassanid Emperor Bahram. Effendi also posited that Zoroaster lived approximately 1,000 years before Jesus, situating him in a historical context that aligns with the Bahá'í understanding of the continuity and interconnectedness of prophetic traditions. The concept of Asha, central to Zoroastrianism, is deeply rooted in a complex understanding of truth, order, and cosmic justice. The term Asha shares linguistic and conceptual roots with the Vedic Ra, both terms reflecting a similar dichotomy with their opposites, Druj and Anta respectively, which denote falsehood or chaos. In Zoroastrian tradition, Asha is closely associated with Ahura Mazda, the supreme deity who embodies truth and order. As such, Asha is not just a philosophical concept but a divine principle that underpins the very fabric of existence. This principle of Asha manifests in various aspects of life and the universe. In the Gathas and other Zoroastrian texts, it is depicted as the force that ensures the proper functioning of the cosmos, the movement of celestial bodies, and the growth of plants. It is through the alignment with Asha that individuals achieve righteousness, fulfilling the ethical goals of Zoroastrianism, encapsulated in the triad of good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Here, Asha is actively involved in guiding actions toward truth and order, with Vohamana inspiring good thoughts, Sraosha ensuring good words, and Asha directing good deeds. This understanding of Asha as the right working of the universe ties back to Indo-European linguistic roots that emphasize proper joining together and realization, as in making something real or effective. The careful enunciation of prayers in Zoroastrian rituals, for instance, is a reflection of the belief that words, when aligned with Asha, have the power to bring about real and positive outcomes in the world. This highlights the practical aspect of Asha as something that is not only believed but also lived and experienced in the daily practices of Zoroastrians. Asha Vahishta, the embodiment of supreme truth and righteousness in Zoroastrianism, holds a profound connection with fire, which serves as a physical manifestation of this divine principle. This connection is vividly illustrated in the ritual of ordeal by fire, where individuals accused of wrongdoing would undergo a fiery test to prove their innocence. Those who were truthful and righteous, aligned with Asha, would emerge unscathed, while the guilty would be burned. The analogy of fire as a force that burns away deception is reinforced in the Gathas, the most sacred hymns of Zoroastrianism, where Ahura Mazda, the supreme deity, dispenses justice through the radiance of his fire. Moreover, in later Zoroastrian tradition, the household hearth, the fire that sustains daily life, is also a symbol of Asha Vahishta. This domestic fire, which families were tasked with maintaining, represented not only the physical warmth and sustenance of the home, but also the spiritual integrity and truth that should govern daily life. The protection of this sacred fire was seen as tantamount to the protection of truth and righteousness within the household and the community at large. The eschatological framework of Zoroastrianism presents a vision of the end times where Asha Vahishta, alongside other divine figures such as Ahriman and Zoroaster, orchestrates the ultimate triumph of good over evil, culminating in the restoration of the world to its original, perfect state. Upon death, each soul must cross the Chinat bridge, a spiritual bridge that spans the chasm between the material world and the afterlife. This bridge is guarded by Zoroaster, the personification of divine obedience and conscience, who, with the help of Asha, judges the souls based on their adherence to truth during their lives. The righteous, those who have lived in accordance with Asha, experience the bridge as wide and easy to cross, leading them to the radiant quarters of Asha, which is synonymous with paradise. Conversely, the souls of the wicked, those aligned with Druj, find the bridge narrow and perilous, leading them to the house of lies, a place of suffering and torment. Zoroastrian eschatology extends beyond individual judgment to the final renovation of the world, known as Frashokariti. In this apocalyptic vision, Asha Vahishta, together with Ahriman and the Saiyashans, saviors, battles the forces of evil, represented by the diva of greed, and other demonic entities. This cosmic battle culminates in the purification of the world through a river of molten metal, an event where the righteous perceive the molten metal as a warm and soothing bath, while the wicked are scorched by its heat. This fiery river, which will melt the metal in the hills and mountains, symbolizes the final purging of all falsehood and the restoration of Asha's dominion over creation. The Zoroastrian concept of eschatology also intertwines with the celebration of Nowruz, the New Year festival, which symbolizes the renewal of life and the triumph of light over darkness. The 6 ancient spentas represent fundamental aspects of creation and divine attributes that are integral to the maintenance and realization of cosmic order. These entities are the means by which Ahura Mazda's divine thought and intention are translated into reality. Each ancient spenta corresponds to a specific aspect of creation and divine will, and together they form the blueprint of the universe. The Gathas suggest a natural division within the ancient spentas, with Asha Vahishta paired with Vohumana, reflecting their complementary roles in the divine order. This pairing is reinforced in later Zoroastrian texts, such as the Bundahishan, where Vohumana is described as standing on the left side of Ahura Mazda and Asha Vahishta on the right. The term Druj, meaning demoness, is frequently used as a prefix for Nasu and other female divas in Zoroastrian texts. In the Avestan language, Druj signifies falsehood, directly opposing Asha, which means truth. The root of Druj forms the adjective Druwat, meaning possessor of falsehood, which is applied to beings that choose deception over truth. The usage of Druj varies across different texts in the Avesta. In some contexts, it denotes specific demons, while in others, it serves as a general term for anything considered false, immoral, or unclean. The Avestan words Nasu and Nasa refer to corpses or other dead matter such as nails and hair. Consequently, Nasu's name translates literally to corpse matter. Upon death, as soon as the soul departs from a body, the Druj Nasu descends upon the corpse in the guise of a frenzied fly, with its legs and tail protruding, buzzing incessantly. Once Nasu possesses a corpse, the body becomes immediately tainted. Anyone who comes into contact with the corpse will be afflicted by Nasu, rendering them impure, eternally. Nasu remains in the corpse until the Sagdid ritual is performed, where a dog must observe the body, or until the corpse is consumed by a carrion-eating animal, causing Nasu to retreat to her northern abode. Nasu also defiles those who interact with corpse matter in specific ways. According to Vendidad, Ahura Mazda instructs the prophet Zoroaster that one must avoid carrying a corpse alone, to prevent Nasu's contamination from transferring. If someone does carry a corpse solo, Nasu emerges from the nose, eyes, tongue, sexual organs, and other parts of the deceased, and attacks the carrier, soiling him even down to his nails, and he remains unclean forever. In such cases, the infected person cannot be purified. To prevent the spread of impurity, the person must reside in a secluded area where the ground is the cleanest and driest, least disturbed by flocks, herds, the fire of Ahura Mazda, consecrated bundles of beresma, or the faithful. There, Zoroastrians must provide the individual with the coarsest food and the most worn-out clothes until they grow old. Once they reach old age, they are to be executed, and their corpse offered to vultures, after which they are cleansed through their repentance. Nasu also contaminates those who eat the flesh of a dog or a human, or who place a corpse in water or fire. These individuals are deemed eternally unclean, with no possibility of repentance. Additionally, Nasu will afflict both humans and dogs present at the time of a person's death. In certain instances, a living person who has been tainted by Nasu can regain purity through appropriate purification rituals. However, if these rites are performed by someone unqualified, Nasu's influence will intensify, worsening the contamination. In Fargard 10 of the Vendidad, Ahura Mazda advises reciting specific verses from the Gathas, to combat Nasu and cleanse the defiled individual. Some verses must be recited twice, 3 times, or 4 times. The Shozbai, or utterance against pollution, is a crucial daily recitation in honor of Zoroaster. This powerful prayer acts as a protective measure against decay and death. In Fargard 18 of the Vendidad, Zoroaster converses with Nasu. During their exchange, he questions her about her progeny, asking whether she can bear offspring without physical union. Nasu replies that she becomes impregnated whenever Zoroastrians exhibit greed, emit seed during sleep, spill water, or walk without wearing the sacred girdle and shirt. Conversely, Nasu's progeny are destroyed whenever someone acts generously toward another Zoroastrian or recites the Ahana Varya after emitting seed or spilling water. The Zoroastrian belief that bodies are infested by Nasu upon death profoundly influenced their burial practices and funeral rites. Burial and cremation of corpses were prohibited, as these actions would pollute the sacred elements of earth and fire respectively. Burial was so disapproved of that exhuming buried corpses was considered a virtuous act. To address these concerns, towers of silence were created, open-air structures designed for exposing corpses to carrion-eating birds, allowing them to consume the bodies. The Sagdid, or seen by a dog, is a ritual that must be conducted as soon as possible after death. The dog evaluates the level of evil within the corpse and captures the contamination to prevent its further spread, expelling Nasu from the body. Nasu remains with the corpse until it has been observed by a dog, or consumed by a dog or carrion-eating bird. According to Chapter 31 of the Denkard, the reason for consuming corpses is that the evil effects of Nasu are contained within the corpse until, once ingested, the body is transformed from Nasa into nourishment for animals. This process changes the corpse from a state of corruption into hixer, or dry dead matter, which is considered less polluting. A path traversed by a funeral procession must not be crossed again, as Nasu lingers in the area until proper rites of banishment are performed. Nasu is expelled from the area only after a yellow dog with 4 eyes, or a white dog with yellow ears is led through the path 3 times. If the dog is reluctant to walk the path, it must be led back and forth up to 9 times to ensure Nasu has been effectively driven away. The influence of Zoroastrian philosophy has extended into the Western intellectual tradition, notably impacting Judaism and Platonic thought, marking a pivotal moment in the evolution of philosophical inquiry. Greek philosophers, such as Heraclitus, are often cited as being influenced by Zoroastrian ideas. In fact, the Oxford Dictionary of Philosophy, in 2005, recognized Zoroaster as a significant figure in the chronological development of philosophy. The legacy of Zoroaster is perpetuated through the system of religious ethics known as Mazdayasana, which translates to worship of wisdom, or Mazda in English. According to Pliny's Natural History, Zoroastrianism's influence extended to Greek thinkers, with figures such as Pythagoras adopting similar concepts in their pursuit of ultimate truth, eventually coining the term philosophy, meaning love of wisdom, to describe their intellectual endeavors. Central to Zoroaster's teachings is the concept of individual freedom and responsibility. The choice to embrace Asha and reject Druj is a personal decision rather than a divine mandate. Zoroaster emphasized that individuals, through their own volition, are responsible for their thoughts, words, and actions. By engaging in acts of kindness, performing righteous deeds, and upholding the principles of good ritual, one contributes to the enhancement of Asha, in both the world and oneself. This engagement is seen as a celebration of the divine order and a step towards achieving Frashokariti, the ultimate goal of cosmic renewal and perfection. Thus, in Zoroastrianism, humanity is not merely in servitude to Ahura Mazda but is envisioned as active participants in the divine plan. Individuals are empowered to become co-workers in the effort to perfect the world, thereby attaining the status of Seoscience, world perfecters, and eventually achieving the esteemed position of Ashavan, Master of Asha. This vision of humanity underscores the religion's emphasis on personal choice and responsibility in the ongoing struggle between truth and falsehood. In the Hellenistic period, Greek interpretations of Zoroaster, often infused with layers of myth and speculation, painted a complex picture of this figure. According to Plutarch, Diogenes Laertius, and Gathas, Zoroaster was recognized primarily as the prophet and founder of the religion of the Iranian peoples, though much of the surrounding detail was largely fictional. The Greeks situated Zoroaster in the ancient past, often placing him 6 to 7 millennia before the Common Era, and various accounts described him as either a king of Bactria or a Babylonian sage, emphasizing a biographical narrative common among Neo-Pythagorean philosophers. This narrative typically involved an ascetic retreat followed by a period of enlightenment, echoing the life stories of other ancient sages. Plutarch's works, particularly in the context of dualism, initially did not equate Zoroaster with the same figure throughout. In his Moralia, he mentions Zoroaster under the name Zarathustra, not realizing it was the same individual. Here, Zoroaster is presented as a teacher of Pythagoras, further entrenching him in the philosophical and mystical traditions of the time. The portrayal of Zoroaster also expanded to include roles as a sorcerer and astrologer, a figure reputed to have invented both magic and astrology. This image was bolstered by a substantial body of literature attributed to him, which circulated throughout the Mediterranean world from the 3rd century BC and continued into late antiquity and beyond. The texts attributed to Zoroaster were predominantly in Greek, although they were sometimes transmitted through Aramaic, Syriac, Coptic, or Latin. The Hellenistic ethos infused into these works reflected a cultural bid for legitimizing alien wisdom by associating it with figures considered authoritative and mysterious. Despite the attribution to Zoroaster and the Magi, these works were not composed by them but used their names to lend authority. Among these attributed texts was a treatise titled On Nature, Periphysios, which was divided into 4 volumes. This work reinterpreted Plato's myth of air, placing Zoroaster in the role of the hero and reconfiguring cosmic hierarchies according to contemporary understanding. While Plato's 4th century BC version placed the sun second to the moon, the On Nature text placed the sun in the central position, reflecting the changing views of cosmology in the 3rd century. Controversies surrounding Zoroaster's influence and legacy were evident as well. Calotes accused Plato of plagiarizing from Zoroaster, while Heraclides Ponticus wrote a text called Zoroaster to challenge Plato's natural philosophy. Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, identified Zoroaster as the inventor of magic, though the persona of Zoroaster as a magician was largely constructed. The association of Zoroaster with astrology can be traced to his supposed Babylonian origins, with his Greek name being linked to star worship. Initially, Zoroaster was identified with Astrophites, or star sacrificer, and later mytho-etymologies developed even more elaborate narratives. One such tale suggested that Zoroaster died due to the living fire from the stars, which he had invoked, and that the stars, seeking revenge, caused his death. In the Hellenistic world, Zoroaster was known by several Greek names, including Zarathus, Zaratas, Zaratas, and Zaratos. This varied nomenclature reflects the Greek attempts to engage with and interpret the complex figure of Zoroaster, blending him with local traditions and historical figures. The Pythagoreans, for instance, were thought to have studied with Zoroaster during their time in Babylonia, drawing connections between his teachings and their own mathematical and mystical systems. Leitus, in his work on the months, attributes the creation of the 7-day week to the Babylonians in the circle of Zoroaster and Hystasps, linking this practice to the 7 celestial bodies known to the ancients. Lucian of Samosata, in Menopus, recounts his decision to travel to Babylon to consult with one of Zoroaster's disciples, further indicating the widespread fascination and respect for Zoroaster's reputed wisdom. However, the division between Zoroaster as an astrologer and Ostanes as a magician simplifies a more complex reality. The Greek and Roman attributions to Zoroaster do not reflect authentic Zoroastrian doctrine but rather a mix of myth, fantasy, and eclectic interests that were not necessarily aligned with Zoroaster's historical teachings. Much of the literature attributed to Zoroaster in antiquity has been lost, with only fragments surviving. Pliny the Elder's claim of 2 million lines of text attributed to Zoroaster, although likely exaggerated, indicates the significant body of pseudepigraphical literature once thought to exist. These works, now largely lost, were a testament to the high regard in which Zoroaster was held, despite the fact that none of these texts were known to have been authored by him. Despite the plethora of pseudepigrapha, some genuine Zoroastrian ideas did influence later texts. The Oracles of Hystasps, attributed to another Magian pseudo-author, draws on real Zoroastrian sources, distinguishing it from purely fictional accounts. The notion of Zoroaster's laughter at birth and his pulsating head, recorded by Pliny, was seen as indicative of his future wisdom and possibly reflected in later Zoroastrian traditions. An early reference to Zoroaster in English literature appears in the writings of Sir Thomas Browne, who, in his work Religio Medici, 1643, mentions Zoroaster alongside other ancient figures. Browne reflects on the ancient wisdom lost to time, noting that despite Zoroaster's contributions, much of his work has been obscured by the passage of ages. In the 19th century, Zoroaster makes an appearance in E.T.A. Hoffmann's novel Klein's Axe, Genant Zinneber, 1819, where the character Prosper Alpanus refers to Professor Zoroaster as his teacher. Friedrich Nietzsche's engagement with Zoroaster is perhaps one of the most profound and complex. In his seminal work Thus Spoke Zarathustra, 1885, Nietzsche adopts the name Zarathustra for the central character of his philosophical novel. Nietzsche's Zarathustra serves as a mouthpiece for his own ideas on morality, contrasting sharply with the traditional Zoroastrian worldview. While the historical Zoroaster's teachings are centered around the dualistic struggle between good and evil, as represented by the divine figures of Ahura Mazda and Ingramenu, Nietzsche's Zarathustra embodies a philosophy that seeks to transcend and redefine these binary moral concepts. Nietzsche's choice to use Zarathustra's name was both a tribute to the ancient prophet and an attempt to invert his teachings, presenting a philosophy that moves beyond traditional notions of good and evil.